The red warning lights flashed across Kepler Station's command center. Commander Lisa Hayes stood at the main control panel, watching the enemy ships move closer on her screen. The dark shapes looked like angry insects against the stars. They were called the Hive, and they destroyed everything in their path. "How many ships are coming?" Lisa asked her communications officer. 60 enemy vessels, Commander." "Maybe more behind them," came the reply. Lisa felt her stomach drop. Kepler Station only had 12 human ships to defend it. The mining station sat on the edge of human space, far from any help. If it fell, the Hive would have a clear path to attack Earth's outer colonies. "Send a message to all ships," Lisa ordered. "Prepare for battle." Standing beside her was Captain Zarathul, a warrior from the Veltar species. She was tall and lean, with blue-gray skin and bright yellow eyes. Her people had been fighting the Hive for longer than humans had known about space travel. Her biomechanical armor gleamed under the command center lights. The armor was not just protection. It was part of her, connected to her nervous system like a second skin. "My ships are ready to fight," Zarathul said in her deep voice. "But the Hive brings many vessels. We need a miracle." Lisa nodded. She had worked with Zarathul for 2 years now. The Veltar captain was the bravest warrior she had ever met. If Zarathul was worried, then things were very bad. The space battle began when the first Hive ships came into range. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the human destroyer USS Liberty. His ship fired its main guns at the largest enemy vessel. Blue energy beams lit up the darkness of space. "Direct hit on target 1. Jake's voice came over the radio. "But their shields are holding." More human and Veltar ships joined the fight. The space around Kepler Station became a storm of laser fire and exploding missiles. The enemy ships were bigger and stronger, but the defenders fought with everything they had. Danny Rodriguez crouched in the station's main hangar bay, fixing a damaged fighter ship. He was a staff sergeant in the human military, but his real job was engineering. Danny could fix almost anything with the right tools and enough time. Right now he was trying to get 3 broken fighters back into the battle. The hangar shook as enemy fire hit the station's outer hull. Sparks flew from damaged power lines overhead. Danny kept working. The pilots needed their ships. Rodriguez, "Get those fighters ready!" shouted Captain Amy Foster as she ran past with a squad of Marines. "We need every ship we can get." "Almost done, Captain," Danny called back, not looking up from his work. Outside, the battle was going badly. The Hive ships moved in perfect formation, like they shared one mind. Every time the defenders destroyed one enemy ship, 2 more took its place. The human and Veltar vessels fought bravely, but they were being pushed back. Jake Morrison's USS Liberty took heavy damage when 3 Hive cruisers focused their fire on it. The ship's shields failed, and enemy beams cut through the hull like hot knives through butter. "Liberty is losing power," Jake reported, his voice tight with pain. "Engine room is gone. We're going down." Lisa watched helplessly as Jake's ship spun out of control. It was heading straight for the station's docking bay. "All personnel, clear the main hangar," Lisa announced over the station's speakers. "Incoming crash landing." Danny looked up from his repair work to see the Liberty coming toward him fast. The ship was on fire and leaking air from dozens of holes. He grabbed his tools and ran for the nearest exit as the destroyer smashed through the hangar's force field. The Liberty hit the hangar floor hard, sliding across the metal surface in a shower of sparks. It finally stopped when it crashed into a pile of supply containers. The impact shook the entire station. Danny made his way back into the damaged hangar once the emergency alarm stopped. Smoke filled the air and broken metal was everywhere. He found Jake Morrison crawling out of his ship's escape hatch, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. "Captain, are you okay?" Danny asked, helping Jake to his feet. "I'll live," Jake said, looking around at the wreckage. "But my ship won't. 20 years I commanded that vessel." Near the wreckage of another ship, Danny saw something that made him stop and stare. It was Zarathul, but something was wrong. Her biomechanical armor was cracked and sparking. The blue lights that normally glowed along its surface were dim or dead. Zarathul sat against a broken wall, trying to move, but failing. Her armor was not responding to her commands. Without it, she looked small and vulnerable, not like the fierce warrior Danny knew her to be. "The neural connections are severed," Zarathul said when Danny approached. "My armor is dying. Without it, I cannot fight. I cannot even survive in hostile environments." Danny knelt beside her and examined the damaged armor. He had never seen Veltar technology up close before. It was beautiful and complex, far beyond anything humans had built, but it was also broken, maybe beyond repair. "My people have tried for centuries to fix such damage," Zarathul continued. "It cannot be done. The bioneural pathways are too delicate. Once they are broken, they stay broken." Through the hangar's viewports, Danny could see the space battle, still raging. The human and Veltar forces were losing ships faster than they could replace them. Soon, the hive would break through completely. Lisa's voice came over the radio from the command center. "All stations, prepare for final defensive positions. They're coming through our lines." Danny looked at the broken armor, then at the wreckage of human ships scattered around the hangar. An idea began to form in his mind. It was crazy, and it probably would not work. But with the battle almost lost, crazy ideas might be their only hope. He stood up and walked over to the ruined Liberty, studying its twisted hull and exposed systems. Jake followed him, curious about what the engineer was thinking. "What is it, Rodriguez?" Jake asked. Danny did not answer right away. He was too busy looking at the broken pieces around him, seeing possibilities where others saw only destruction. His mind was already working on a plan that no one had ever tried before. The hive ships were getting closer to the station. Soon, they would send their boarding parties, but maybe, just maybe, there was still time to turn the tide of battle. Danny Rodriguez walked through the wreckage-filled hangar, stepping over twisted metal and broken glass. The air still smelled of smoke and burned electronics. Jake Morrison followed behind him, limping slightly from his crash landing. "What are you looking for, Rodriguez?" Jake asked. "Parts," Danny said simply. He stopped at a pile of debris from his destroyed fighter and pulled out a small black box. "Power regulator from an F-22 fighter, still intact." Zarathul watched them from where she sat against the wall. Her damaged armor made soft clicking sounds as its systems tried and failed to restart. "Human, what you are thinking is impossible. No species has ever repaired Veltar bioarmor once the neural pathways are broken." Danny looked back at her. Maybe they were trying to fix it the wrong way. The station shook again as more enemy fire hit the outer hull. Through the hangar's damaged force field, they could see hive ships moving closer. Their dark hulls reflected no light, making them look like holes in space. Captain Amy Foster's voice crackled over the radio. "Command, this is Foster. Enemy boarding pods have breached Section 7. My Marines are falling back to secondary positions." Lisa Hayes responded from the command center. "Understood, Amy. Hold them as long as you can. We're running out of places to retreat to." Danny knelt beside Zarathul and examined her armor more closely. The chest piece had a long crack running through it, and several of the bio-neural interface ports were completely destroyed. Sparks occasionally jumped between broken connections. Tell me how this works, Danny said. Zarathul looked surprised. You want to understand Veltar technology? I want to fix it. It is not like your human machines, Zarathul explained. The armor is grown, not built. It bonds with my nervous system through bio-neural pathways. These pathways carry both energy and information between my body and the armor's systems. Danny nodded, following her explanation. So it's like a computer network, but made of living tissue instead of wires. In very simple terms, yes. But the bio-neural tissue cannot be replaced once it dies. My people have tried for generations. Danny walked over to the wreckage of Jake's ship and started pulling out components. He found a military-grade power cell, some fiber-optic cables, and a targeting computer that was somehow still working. What if we don't try to replace the bio-neural pathways? Danny said, carrying his salvaged parts back to Zarathul. What if we bypass them instead? Jake watched Danny work with growing interest. You want to jury-rig her armor with human tech? Why not? The basic principles should be the same. Information goes in, information goes out. Energy flows from source to destination. I just need to find a way to make human systems talk to Veltar systems. Zarathul shook her head. The technologies are too different. Human electronics are crude compared to bio-neural interfaces. The power requirements alone... Actually, Danny interrupted, holding up the power cell from Jake's ship. Human military power cells are more stable than anything I've seen before. They might not be as efficient as your biosystems, but they're reliable. The station's lights flickered as another explosion rocked the structure. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the sound of weapons fire echoing through the corridors. Amy Foster's voice came over the radio again, sounding more desperate. Command, the hive has broken through Section 6. We're down to our last defensive line. How long can you hold? Lisa asked. Maybe an hour. After that, they'll reach the main hangar. Danny looked at his scattered parts, then at Zarathul's broken armor. An hour was not much time, but it might be enough. Jake, I need you to help me strip some more components from the Liberty, Danny said. Specifically, I need the adaptive targeting system and anything we can use for data transmission. You're serious about this, Jake said. It was not a question. Dead serious. Zarathul, I need you to tell me exactly what each part of your armor does. For the next 30 minutes, Danny worked like a man possessed. He tore apart human technology and studied Veltar systems, looking for ways to connect them. Jake helped by providing technical specifications and operating manuals for the human equipment. Zarathul explained how her armor's various systems worked. The strength enhancement came from micromotors in the joint actuators. The weapon systems were controlled by thought impulses sent through the neural interface. The life support systems monitored her vital signs and adjusted environmental controls automatically. The problem, Zarathul said, is that all of these systems expect to receive bio-neural signals. Your electronic signals are completely different. Danny held up a small device he had pulled from a human combat suit. Translation matrix. We use these to make different computer systems work together. If I can modify it to interpret bio-neural signals, he connected fiber optic cables between the translation device and Zarathul's armor. Then he wired the human power cell into the armor's energy distribution system. It should not have worked. The power levels were wrong, the signal types were incompatible, and the whole setup looked like something a child might build from spare parts. But Danny had spent his entire career making impossible repairs under impossible conditions. He had fixed starship engines with kitchen utensils and rebuilt communication systems using parts from broken coffee makers. This was just another impossible repair. The neural interface is the biggest problem, Danny muttered, studying a complex-looking device at the base of Zarathul's skull. I need something that can read brain signals and convert them to electronic commands. Jake snapped his fingers. Medical nanites. The station's infirmary uses them for brain surgery. They can interface directly with neural tissue. Danny's eyes lit up. That might actually work. Jake, can you get to the medical bay? On my way, Jake said, grabbing a plasma rifle from the weapons locker. While Jake was gone, Danny continued modifying the armor's systems. He replaced burned-out circuits with human components and rerouted power flows around damaged sections. It was not elegant, but it was functional. The sounds of battle were getting closer. Amy Foster's Marines were fighting hard, but they were being pushed back step by step. Soon the Hive soldiers would reach the hangar. Jake returned with a case, full of medical nanites and several other pieces of equipment. Had to fight my way through 3 Hive drones, he said, slightly out of breath. But I got what you need. Danny quickly programmed the nanites to interface with Zarathul's neural tissue and then connect to the human translation matrix. It was delicate work, and one mistake could damage her brain permanently. This is insane, Zarathul said as Danny prepared to inject the nanites. You are trying to make my brain talk to human computers. Trust me, Danny said. I know it sounds crazy, but crazy is what humans do best. The injection took only a few seconds. Almost immediately, the translation matrix began receiving signals from Zarathul's brain. Danny fine-tuned the device until the signals were clear and strong. Now comes the real test, Danny said, connecting the final cable. Try to move your left arm. Zarathul concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, her armored left arm began to rise. The movement was jerky and uncoordinated, but it was movement. It works, she whispered, amazement in her voice. The targeting system is next, Danny said, installing the human computer he had salvaged from Jake's ship. This should give you better accuracy than your original systems. The station shook violently as a massive explosion echoed through the corridors. Amy Foster's voice came over the radio, tight with stress. Command, they've broken through. Hive forces are heading for the main hangar. You've got maybe 10 minutes. Danny looked at his improvised repairs. The armor was working, but barely. It would take more time to fully integrate all the systems, time they did not have. The sound of gunfire echoed through the station's corridors, getting closer every minute. Danny Rodriguez worked frantically on Zarathul's armor, sweat dripping from his forehead despite the cool air in the hangar. His hands moved quickly between human components and Veltar systems, making connections that should have been impossible. Power levels are stabilizing, Jake Morrison said, reading from a handheld scanner. The human power cell is actually providing more steady energy than her original biosystems. Zarathul flexed her fingers, testing the repaired motor functions. The movements were still awkward, but getting smoother with each attempt. This feels strange. Different from before, but not unpleasant. Danny attached a human combat computer to the armor's chest plate. This will handle targeting calculations and threat assessment. It's not as fast as Veltar bioprocessors, but it's more flexible. Rodriguez, whatever you're doing, do it faster. Amy Foster's voice crackled over the radio. I've lost half my Marines. The Hive is 2 sections away from your position. Through the hangar's damaged viewports, they could see the space battle still raging. Human and Veltar ships were exploding one by one, unable to match the Hive's overwhelming numbers. Soon there would be no friendly forces left to protect the station. Danny pulled fiber optic cables from a destroyed fighter jet and began threading them through the armor's damaged neural pathways. These will carry data signals between your brain and the targeting system. It won't feel natural at first, but you'll adapt. My people spent centuries trying to solve this problem, Zarathul said, watching Danny work. How can you fix it in less than an hour? Because I'm not trying to make it perfect, Danny replied, soldering a connection. I'm just trying to make it work. Jake helped by holding components in place while Danny made the final connections. The engineer had stripped parts from every damaged piece of human technology in the hangar. Power regulators from fighters, targeting computers from bombers, communication arrays from transport ships. Everything was being repurposed into Zarathul's hybrid armor. The weapon systems are the hardest part, Danny muttered, studying the armor's arm-mounted plasma cannon. Your original bio-neural firing controls are completely dead. Then how will I aim and fire? Zarathul asked. Danny held up a device that looked like a human pilot's targeting helmet. Voice commands and eye tracking. Not as fast as thought control, but close enough. An explosion shook the station so hard that loose debris fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered and went out for several seconds before the emergency power kicked in. Lisa Hayes' voice came over the communication system. All personnel, this is Commander Hayes. Enemy forces have breached the inner defensive perimeter. All non-essential personnel report to evacuation shuttles immediately. We're not leaving, Danny said firmly, continuing his work. Jake looked at him with concern. Danny, even if you get her armor working, we're facing impossible odds. Maybe we should evacuate while we still can. No, Danny said, connecting the final power cable. This station is humanity's first line of defense. If we lose it, the Hive. We'll attack Earth's colonies next. We make our stand here. Zarathul tried to stand up, and for the first time since her armor was damaged, she succeeded. The hybrid systems hummed with power, human and Veltar technology working together in ways neither species had ever imagined. How do you feel? Danny asked. Zarathul took a few experimental steps. Her movements were fluid and controlled, perhaps even more graceful than before. Different, stronger somehow. The human power systems provide more energy than my biocells ever did. Test the targeting system, Jake suggested. Zarathul looked at a piece of debris across the hangar. Target acquired, she said aloud. Immediately, information appeared on the display inside her helmet. Distance, wind resistance, optimal firing angle, all calculated by the human combat computer. Incredible, she whispered. The targeting data is more detailed than anything my people ever developed. The sound of running footsteps echoed in the corridor outside the hangar. Amy Foster appeared in the doorway with the last of her Marines, all of them wounded and exhausted. They're right behind us, Amy gasped, reloading her rifle, maybe 30 seconds before the Hive breaks through. Danny looked around the hangar at all the wreckage and broken technology. An idea struck him. Amy, can your Marines use Veltar weapons? If we have to, yes. Why? Because there are Veltar weapon systems scattered all over this hangar. If I can modify them with human targeting computers, do it, Amy said without hesitation. My people will use whatever you can give us. Danny and Jake began frantically, pulling weapons from the wreckage of Veltar ships. The energy rifles were more powerful than human weapons, but their bio-neural controls made them useless to human soldiers, unless those controls could be bypassed. Same principle as the armor, Danny said, attaching a human targeting device to a Veltar energy rifle. Replace the bio-neural interface with electronic controls. The first Hive soldiers appeared in the corridor outside the hangar. They were tall, insect-like creatures covered in black metal armor. Their weapons glowed with dangerous energy. "Here! They come!" Amy shouted, raising her rifle. Danny threw the modified Veltar weapon to one of Amy's Marines. "Point and shoot! The human targeting system will do the rest!" The Marine caught the weapon and immediately fired at the approaching Hive soldiers. The energy beam was twice as powerful as his human rifle and cut through enemy armor like paper. "This thing is amazing!" the Marine shouted, firing again. More Hive soldiers poured into the corridor, but they were met by a wall of hybrid weapons fire. Human Marines using Veltar energy weapons, guided by human targeting computers, proved to be devastatingly effective. Zarathul stepped forward, her rebuilt armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Her arm-mounted plasma cannon charged with a deep humming sound. "Target multiple enemies," she said. Her helmet display immediately identified 6 Hive soldiers and calculated optimal firing solutions for each one. "Fire!" she commanded. The plasma cannon unleashed a burst of energy that struck all 6 targets in rapid succession. The Hive soldiers were destroyed instantly, their armor no match for the enhanced weapon system. Danny watched in amazement as his improvised repairs performed better than he had dared hope. The hybrid technology was not just working. It was working better than either human or Veltar systems alone. "The armor's neural interface is learning," Zarathul said, her voice filled with wonder. "The human computers are adapting to my thought patterns, becoming more responsive with each passing minute." More Hive forces appeared, but they were no longer facing desperate humans and a wounded Veltar warrior. They were facing something new, a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and Veltar biotechnology. The tide of battle was beginning to turn, but the real test was yet to come. Through the hangar's viewports, they could see massive Hive ships moving toward the station. The enemy was preparing for a final assault that would determine the fate of both species. Danny looked at his hybrid creations, Zarathul in her rebuilt armor and human Marines wielding modified Veltar weapons. It was not what either species had planned, but it was what they needed. "Get ready," he said. "This is just the beginning." Zarathul moved through the station's corridors like a force of nature. Her rebuilt armor responded to her thoughts faster than ever before, the human computer systems learning and adapting with each movement. Behind her, Amy Foster's Marines followed, carrying their hybrid weapons and marveling at their new power. "Section 12 is clear," Zarathul reported over the radio. "Moving to Section 11. In the command center, Lisa Hayes watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The red enemy markers that had been advancing steadily through the station were now retreating. Somehow, impossibly, the tide was turning. "Commander, this is Jake Morrison," came a voice from the hangar. "Danny's modifications are working better than we hoped. Zarathul's new armor is more effective than her original equipment." Lisa shook her head in disbelief. How is that possible? Down in the corridor, Zarathul paused at an intersection. Her enhanced sensors detected 15 Hive soldiers around the corner, waiting in ambush. The human targeting system calculated their exact positions and suggested the best attack pattern. "Targets identified," she said to Amy's Marines. 15 enemies positioned for ambush. I will draw their fire. You flank from the left." "Copy that," Amy replied. "Marines, you heard her. Move." Zarathul stepped around the corner and immediately the Hive soldiers opened fire. Energy beams struck her armor, but the human power systems absorbed the impact and redistributed the energy through the hybrid power grid. She felt stronger after each hit, not weaker. Her plasma cannon charged and fired in one smooth motion. The targeting computer guided each shot with perfect precision, striking enemy weak points that Veltar sensors had never been able to detect. 3 Hive soldiers fell in the first volley. Amy's Marines attacked from the side with their modified Veltar weapons. The energy rifles cut through enemy armor like hot knives, while human tactical training gave them advantages the Hive had never faced before. In less than 30 seconds, all 15 enemies were destroyed. "This is incredible," one of the Marines said, examining his weapon. "These Veltar rifles hit 3 times harder than our old guns. And your human targeting systems are more accurate than anything my people ever built," Zarathul added. "Together, our technologies are stronger than either one alone." Back in the hangar, Danny was working on another project. He had found the remains of a Veltar communication array and was connecting it to human computer systems. "What are you building now?" Jake asked. "A way to coordinate our hybrid weapons," Danny explained. "If I can link all the targeting systems together, our people will be able to share tactical information instantly." Jake watched Danny work with admiration. The engineer had solved problems in one day that both species had struggled with for decades. His approach was completely different from anything the Veltar had tried. Crude but effective, practical rather than elegant. "You're changing everything, you know," Jake said. Danny looked up from his work. "I'm just fixing broken equipment." "No, you're doing more than that. You're showing both our species what we can accomplish together." The communication array came online with a soft hum. Immediately, data began flowing between all the hybrid weapons and armor systems. Human Marines could now see what Zarathul's sensors detected, and she could access their tactical assessments. Lisa's voice crackled over the radio. "All stations. We're detecting massive energy buildups from the Hive fleet. They're preparing for a final assault." Through the hangar's viewports, they could see the enemy ships moving into attack formation. The largest Hive vessel, a massive dreadnought, was positioning itself directly in front of the station. "That ship is their command center," Zarathul said, returning to the hangar with Amy's Marines. "If we can destroy it, their entire fleet will lose coordination." "How do we attack something that size?" Amy asked. "Our ships are all destroyed or disabled." Danny looked at the wreckage around them, then at Zarathul's hybrid armor. "We don't need ships. We just need to get close enough." "What are you thinking?" Jake asked. Danny pointed to an emergency shuttle that was damaged but still functional. "That shuttle can get us to the Hive ship. Once there, Zarathul can use her enhanced abilities to reach the command center." "That's a suicide mission," Amy protested. "Even with her new armor, she can't fight an entire ship full of enemies." "She won't be alone," Danny said. "I'm going with her." "Danny, you're not a soldier," Jake said. "You're an engineer." "Exactly, and I'm the only one who understands how the hybrid systems work. If something breaks, she'll need me to fix it." Zarathul studied the Hive dreadnought through her enhanced sensors. The human targeting computer was already calculating possible entry points and defensive weaknesses. "The plan could work," she said slowly. "My armor's new capabilities might be enough to penetrate their defenses. But the risk is enormous." "Everything we've done today has been risky," Danny replied. "But it's worked so far." Lisa's voice came over the radio again, urgent this time. "All personnel, The Hive fleet is beginning their final attack. Multiple enemy ships are moving toward the station. Danny grabbed a toolkit and a portable powered cell. We're out of time. Zarathul, are you ready? She tested her armor's systems one more time. Every component responded perfectly, human and Veltar technology working in perfect harmony. I am ready. Jake started up the emergency shuttle while Amy's Marines provided covering fire. Hive fighters were already attacking the station's outer hull, trying to clear the way for their boarding parties. Good luck, Amy said as Danny and Zarathul boarded the shuttle. Bring back some good news. The shuttle launched from the hangar and immediately came under fire from enemy fighters. Jake piloted the small craft with skill, dodging energy beams and missile attacks as they approached the massive Hive dreadnought. There, Zarathul pointed to a section of the enemy ship's hull. My sensors detect a maintenance airlock. We can enter there. Jake brought the shuttle in close to the dreadnought's hull, using the larger ship's own mass to shield them from fighter attacks. You've got 30 seconds before they figure out what we're doing. Danny and Zarathul jumped from the shuttle onto the Hive ship's hull. Zarathul's enhanced strength allowed her to carry Danny easily, while her armor's magnetic systems kept them attached to the metal surface. She used her plasma cannon to cut through the airlock, and they dropped into the ship's interior. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the vessel. Now we find their command center, Zarathul said, checking her targeting display. And we end this war. Danny looked around at the alien ship's dark corridors. The walls were covered with organic-looking technology that pulsed with an eerie light. Somewhere in this ship was the brain that controlled the entire Hive fleet. They had one chance to stop it. Lead the way, Danny said, checking his equipment. Let's show them what human and Veltar engineering can do when we work together. Inside the Hive dreadnought, Danny and Zarathul moved through corridors that pulsed with alien life. The walls were covered with organic technology that seemed to breathe and watch their every move. Strange lights flickered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The command center should be at the ship's core, Zarathul said, consulting her enhanced sensors. But there are hundreds of enemies between us and our target. Danny checked his toolkit. Then we better move fast. They encountered their first group of Hive soldiers at the next intersection. 20 enemy warriors blocked their path, their insect-like bodies covered in black metal armor, their weapons charged with deadly energy. Zarathul's targeting system immediately identified weak points in their armor. Multiple targets detected. Engaging. Her plasma cannon fired in rapid bursts, each shot guided by the human computer systems. The enhanced targeting was so precise that every blast found gaps in enemy armor or struck weapon systems directly. In seconds, half the Hive soldiers were destroyed. The remaining enemies returned fire, but Zarathul's hybrid armor absorbed their energy beams and converted the power to her own systems. She grew stronger with each attack, something the Hive had never encountered before. Impossible! Danny heard one of the enemies hiss in their alien language. She draws power from our weapons. Human engineering, Zarathul replied in the same language, surprising both Danny and the Hive soldiers. We adapt. The last enemy fell, and they continued toward the ship's center. Danny's portable scanner detected massive energy readings ahead. They were getting close to the command center. Zarathul, this is working better than I hoped, Danny said as they ran. Your armor is performing beyond all expectations. The human systems are learning, she replied. Each battle makes them more efficient. Your targeting computers understand Hive tactics better than my people's bioprocessors ever did. They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. The command center was a sphere of organic technology suspended in the middle of the room. Thousands of neural pathways connected it to every system on the ship. This was the brain that controlled the entire Hive fleet. But between them and the command center stood 50 of the largest Hive warriors Danny had ever seen. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were elite guards, each one twice the size of a normal enemy. "That is a lot of enemies," Danny said quietly. "Yes," Zarathul agreed. "But we have advantages they do not expect." She activated her armor's communication system and sent a signal back to Kepler Station. "Lisa, this is Zarathul. We have found the Hive Command Center, requesting tactical support from all hybrid weapon systems." Back on the station, Lisa Hayes coordinated with Amy Foster's Marines. Every soldier carrying a modified Veltar weapon linked their targeting data to Zarathul's armor. Suddenly, she had access to tactical information from dozens of different sources. "Support confirmed," Lisa replied. "You have the entire station's computer network at your disposal. The elite." Hive guards attacked all at once. Energy beams filled the air as 50 weapons fired simultaneously. But Zarathul's hybrid armor was ready for them. The human power systems absorbed the incoming energy and fed it back into her weapons. Her plasma cannon charged to levels impossible with Veltar technology alone. When she fired, the beam was so powerful it cut through 3 enemies at once. The targeting computer, now linked to the station's network, calculated attack patterns for all 50 enemies simultaneously. It showed Zarathul exactly where to move to avoid their fire and where to strike for maximum effect. Danny worked frantically on his portable computer, hacking into the ship's systems. "If I can disrupt their neural network, it will confuse their coordination." His human electronics were crude compared to Hive biotechnology, but they used completely different operating principles. The alien systems could not defend against attacks they did not understand. "Network disruption successful," Danny announced. "Their communication is down." Without coordination, the elite guards began making mistakes. Zarathul's enhanced armor took advantage of every error, striking with perfect timing and accuracy. One by one, the massive enemies fell. When the last guard was destroyed, Danny and Zarathul approached the command sphere. It pulsed with alien intelligence, controlling thousands of ships across the galaxy. "How do we destroy it?" Danny asked. Zarathul studied the organic technology with her enhanced sensors. "It is protected by multiple layers of shielding, but the human targeting system detects a weakness here." She pointed to a small neural junction near the base of the sphere. One precise shot should cause a cascade failure through the entire network. She raised her plasma cannon and aimed at the tiny target. The human computer calculated wind resistance, power levels, and optimal firing angle. Everything had to be perfect. "Target acquired," she said. "Firing." The plasma beam struck the neural junction with surgical precision. Immediately, the command sphere began to convulse and spark. The organic technology was tearing itself apart as the cascade failure spread throughout the ship. "All Hive vessels, this is the command ship," came a desperate voice over the alien communication system. "Primary control node is failing. Retreat to secondary positions." Through the ship's viewports, they could see the Hive fleet beginning to withdraw. Without their command center, the massive invasion force was blind and confused. Danny's radio crackled with Lisa's voice. "Zarathul! Danny! Whatever you did, it worked! The enemy fleet is retreating! Kepler Station is secure! They made their way back to the airlock where Jake was waiting with the shuttle. As they escaped from the dying dreadnought, Danny looked back at what they had accomplished. "We did it," he said in amazement. "We actually did it." "Yes," Zarathul agreed. "But this is about more than just winning one battle. You have shown both our species what we can achieve together." Back on Kepler Station, word of their success spread quickly. Human and Veltar engineers worked together to understand the hybrid technology Danny had created. The crude fusion of human and alien systems opened possibilities neither species had imagined. Amy Foster's Marines trained with their new weapons, learning to combine human tactics with Veltar firepower. The results were impressive. Soldiers, who could fight more effectively than either species alone. "This changes everything," Lisa said, examining reports from the battle. "Your modifications made our forces 3 times more effective." Danny found himself surrounded by engineers from both species, all wanting to understand his techniques. The key, he explained, was not trying to make the technologies identical, but finding ways to make them work together despite their differences. Human. "Engineering is about adapting and improvising," he told a group of Veltar scientists. "We do not try to make perfect systems. We make systems that work, even when conditions are not perfect." Zarathul became the first warrior of a new type. Neither fully human nor fully Veltar, but something better than either. Her hybrid armor was soon copied and improved, creating a new generation of soldiers who could face any enemy. The war against the Hive continued, but now it was different. Human adaptability combined with Veltar biotechnology created weapons and defenses the enemy could not counter. More importantly, it created a partnership between 2 species that grew stronger with each shared victory. Danny Rodriguez, the engineer, who had started with nothing but wreckage and determination, became known as the architect of a new age. His willingness to try the impossible had not only saved Kepler Station, it had given both species hope for the future. Standing in the repaired hangar bay, looking out at stars that no longer seemed so threatening, Danny reflected on what they had achieved. Sometimes the best solutions came not from perfect technology, but from the courage to combine broken pieces into something new. The battle had been won not through superior firepower or advanced tactics, but through the simple human belief that any problem could be solved if you were willing to try hard enough and think differently enough. In the end, that was humanity's greatest weapon. The refusal to accept that something could not be fixed, could not be improved, or could not be made to work together. And now, that weapon belonged to both species.